During the fall of 1988, Prince started talking again with Morris Day about doing a new Time album. While he was doing this, he was also pitching a new musical fantasy by the name of Graffiti Bridge to Warner Brothers, but on the side he was also working on another film project that would focus on the band The Time, and he really wanted an album to tie in with that project. After a whole bunch of back and forth with Warner Brothers, these two film projects ended up being merged into one film project, and that would be the film Graffiti Bridge that would be released a couple years later. Just like all the previous Time albums, Prince would write and produce all the songs on this particular project. Morris would provide lead vocals, and Prince would provide background vocals as well as play all the instruments. This new project would be called Corporate World. It was scheduled to be released November 14th, 1989, but was stopped dead in its tracks by Warner Brothers, who refused for the album to be released, insisting and demanding that all the members of The Time actually produce and participate in this new project. And you might be asking yourself, why would Warner Brothers care about who's participating in a new album by The Time? Well, the answer to that is Janet Jackson. And why Janet Jackson, must you ask? Well, you see, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, since they had parted ways with The Time, had become super producers. And sure, they had success with Climax, the SOS Band, New Edition, and Alexander O'Neal, but it was Janet Jackson's albums Control and Rhythm Nation that made them worldwide famous as producers. Control sold over 10 million copies, and Rhythm Nation sold over 12 million copies. The two albums combined had 14 singles that were in the top 10. Jelly Bean Johnson and Monte Moore had contributed to both these albums. Jelly Bean wrote and produced the #1 song Black Cat, and Monte wrote the classic Pleasure Principle. Now then, the other members of the group are also very successful since the breakup. Jesse Johnson actually put out 3 solo albums: Jesse Johnson's Review, Shockadelica, and Every Shade of Love. These 3 albums combined sold over 3 million copies. Jerome Benton co-starred in the Prince-directed film Under the Cherry Moon, and was also a member of the band that Prince created called The Family. Morris Day released 2 solo albums, The Color of Success and Daydreaming. Each one of these records sold over 500,000 copies. Daydreaming had the #1 hit Fishnet, which was produced by his former bandmates Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis. Morris also appeared in the Richard Pryor film Moving and on the TV show 227. With all the combined success of the original members since they parted ways, it is now, when you look back on it, really not that big a surprise that Warner Brothers would demand their input on this new project. So, Prince went ahead and handed Corporate World over to the members of The Time for them to basically rework everything. And they did. The majority of the album was reworked by them, leaving only 1 song that was 100% Prince. But they also added 4 songs that had no Prince input whatsoever. After the group added all their magic to Corporate World became Pandemonium. Pandemonium was released July 10th, 1990, and it peaked at number 18 on Billboard's Top 200, selling over 500,000 copies on its initial release. A big part of the success of this album was its tie-in to the film Graffiti Bridge, which featured all of the band members. Further assisting its success was the singles that were released, Chocolate and Jerk Out. Chocolate only reached number 44 on the R&B charts, but Jerk Out hit number 1 on the R&B charts and number 9 on the top 100 singles. Plus, it sold over 500,000 copies as a single. Videos for Jerk Out
Come here. I got a billboard on Friday night.
And Chocolate were also released. Jerk Out's video is pretty famous for being like a Where's Waldo of all the famous cameos in it.
So I slid on over and I asked her name. The Stella was bad to the bone.
The album opens up about Morris dreaming about The Time getting back together. They use a clip of Donnie Simpson introducing the band at the annual Minnesota Black Music Awards. His dream is interrupted by a phone call telling him he's got to get down to the club right away because they're playing a bunch of whack music and he needs to go there and stop it. That's when we transition into the first song, Pandemonium.
Call it Pandemonium.
After a very short skit called Sexy Socialites, we go into the next song, which is the hit single, Jerk Out.
Jerking everything inside. I'm talking about
This song is performed by Morris Day in a kind of rap sing combination type thing, something new for him at the time. Of course, the definition of jerk out explaining the song is pretty much you pull up to a club, you walk in there, the first woman you see, whether she's alone or not, you just kind of jerk her out of there, take her back to your place, do what you do, and then go back to the club and do it all again, kind of a rinse repeat type thing. It's kind of nasty when you think about it. This song was actually written by Prince back in 1982 for the Time's second album, What Time Is It? Prince would later rework the song and offer it to Maserati for their album, but he ended up scrapping it again, only again to bring it back out for Corporate World. The band then took this song and rewrote it, as the original lyrics to the song were quite vulgar and they needed to clean it up just a little bit, as well as tweaking just a few musical notes here and there. After another short, silly skit, we go on to the song Blondie. This is the first song on the album that is written, produced with no Prince input whatsoever. The song is simply about a dumb blonde at the club and all the cliches that go along with that subject. Donald Trump Black Version is a fun ballad about the perks of being a rich black man in America, especially when it comes to picking up the ladies. Now then, don't be scared by the title. This song has no political affiliations whatsoever. This song was originally part of Corporate World, but given over to the band, who made only slight modifications to the music of the song. Chocolate was originally recorded by Prince back in 1983 for the Times record Ice Cream Castle. This song was reworked by the Time for this project, but interesting fact, the guitar solo you hear is not Jesse Johnson on guitar, it's actually Wendy Melvoin's guitar solo from the original 1983 recording. After a very short skit of Morris rhyming about cooking, we go to the next song, which is Skillet. This is another song with no Prince input whatsoever, and the song is basically a metaphor for cooking up good music. And another thing about Skillet, just in case you didn't know, on the horrible album cover, you'll notice the band is sitting inside of a giant skillet. This is not Photoshop, they actually made a giant prop skillet for them to stand in, to perform in during shows, as well as the cover of this horrible album cover. We continue with another song with no Prince involvement whatsoever, and that is It's Your World. Now then, this song really doesn't fit with the fun craziness of this album, because it's actually a serious song about, hey, if you fail in life, it's your own fault and only you can pick yourself up, because it is, in all reality, your world. Data Bank was recorded back in 1986 for the canceled Prince project Dream Factory. He ended up putting it back in the vault, only to bring it back out to rework it for the album Corporate World. This is the one song on this album that was not altered by the Time whatsoever, other than adding Candy Duffer to the mix with her saxophone skills. My Summertime Thing is identical to the song The Latest Fashion, which is a duet between Morris Day and Prince that's featured on the Graffiti Bridge soundtrack.
I know that's right, 'cause I am the latest fashion.
This song is all around just super fun. You got Morris calling out all kinds of different dance moves for people to do. And then there's one part in the song which is my personal favorite, and that's when Jerome starts chanting the chorus from the song Skillet. And Morris is like, hey, we've already done that. We on a new song. Hey, someone get Jerome out of here. Shortly after the release of this album, the band disbanded again. It first started off as fighting within the band. Like at one time it got so bad that they actually voted Jesse Johnson out of the group. But really what happened is everybody went back to their other careers. You got Jelly Bean Johnson, Monty Moore, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they got back together and went back to producing hit records, including more with Janet Jackson. Jesse Johnson continued on to his own solo career, as well did Morris Day. Morris also started touring as Morris Day and The Time, but of course with different members. He also co-starred in his own sitcom called New Attitude, and made appearances on TV shows like Moesha and Eve. He appeared in the film The Adventures of Ford Fairlane starring Andrew Dice Clay, and did a TV film with Jerome Benton called Hotel Dicks. But will the original 7 ever return and make another album? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. In the meantime, please like and share this video as much as possible, and please subscribe to the channel. And until that next episode, I wish you heaven.